what happens if you've got a client that comes to you and wants to work with you and there's a lot of synergy, and then you show them and tell them the price? One of my coaches has said to me is, it's never about the money. It's always about two questions that are actually behind them saying that they don't have it. First of all, the question is, are you the person to get me to where I need to go? So is Marina the person to take me where I need to go? And secondly is, will I get the results? Like, is it possible for me to get the results that I'm looking for? And is it possible for me to do that? And actually there's another one, which is, do they really know what they truly want, and have they bought into their own vision? So let me address the first one, which is, am I the person to get them there? Now, the way that this can be addressed, and it's not a how-to, it's much more of it's to get curious. It's to get curious behind what not affording it actually really means to them. Because I used to remember I used to say sometimes when I would decide to have a sales conversation with me being the client, potential client, and say, oh, I can't afford it. If somebody had just said to me, well, what do you mean by that? I would have got curious about that myself, because in essence, I did have the cash. I just was too scared to let go of it, thinking, will I make my return on investment? Is this the right person for me to get the result that I'm looking for? So the insecurity was never about letting the money go. It was more about, will I get the result if I pay this money? And the cool thing about asking that question or getting curious about what's going on for them is that you start to let go of it being personal, and you start to enter into their world and what's going on with their money insecurity. So I would just get curious about what they mean by the fact that they can't afford you. And if you find out that they have a question around whether it is or not that you're going to get the result with them, well, recently I've got to see that my client's success has actually got nothing to do with me. I'm there to facilitate a space, but the work that needs to come from them. So they're the ones that need to show up. It's very different. Like, for example, what occurs to me is, when I was a younger child, I used to grab onto my sister's hand, and she used to kind of drag me up the hill, but I used to become a lead weight, and it was really difficult for her to take me up the hill. And so she'd get really frustrated and annoyed, and I'd be like, yeah, you're carrying the load for me. But it was really difficult for her, and we would take ages to get up the hill. Versus me running ahead or walking side by side. That was effortless for her. So this is a bit the same. If you find that you need to know that your client is committed and that they aren't going to drag their feet, because it's very difficult to work with somebody that's going to be dragging their feet and thinking that you're the one that's going to be responsible for their success. Now, while you're instigating that, I now know that every client has everything they ever needed inside of them. But there's an opportunity to facilitate that for them. So fears will show. It's the most natural thing in the world for them to say they can't afford it, because it's fear. And sometimes the fear isn't just about you, it's about stepping out, so it's really understanding what that means to them. Because speaking to the second point, which was, can I get myself there? Well, sometimes they haven't got themselves there yet, so they think, oh, well, it didn't happen in the past, so it may not happen now, there's no guarantee. So getting curious about that may well be pointing to the fact that they're fearful of getting visible. It didn't work in the past, so they assume that it won't work in the future. And then finally, getting them in touch with their vision and their why. That's really important, because if they can believe and fall in love with their vision and their why, the chances are they'll want it enough to say yes. If all of those three things are in place, there's no problem about handing over the money. Now, if they don't have the cash, like literally don't have the money in the bank, and you're asking for a 10K package, for example, well, that's a reality for them. Logistically speaking, they don't have the cash. But there are two schools of thought on this. The first one is, if they really wanted you bad enough, they'd find a way to find it. Because it's never about what we've got, it's about the resources that we have to create that reality for ourselves. But they'd make it happen if all of those three things that I've spoken about were in line. And sometimes it's just a question of a little nudge and say, look, I may not have the one-to-one package for you right now, it may not be a good time, but I do have all of these other things you might be interested in. And this goes back to not having a one-off product or service. It comes back to being able to have an array of products and services that can cater for a gamut of clients that you may have. So I've got a freebie, I've got some events that I run, your pathway to abundance, your pathway to wisdom, your pathway to success and love. And then I've got an effortless lifestyle program. And then I have my VIPs, and then I have intensive. So there's a whole range of things that, and ways in which I can work with the clients that I have, that gives them choice, that gives them an opportunity to stick their toe in the water if they need to, if they need to, so it's a bit like dating, for example. You date first, you go out for dinner first, see if you actually kind of like them. Then you start dating. Then it may well become exclusive dating, you go on to the next level. Then there's the engagement, if all is good, and then you get married. So it's the same deal, like I don't expect clients to come to me who want to get married to me straight off the bat. Some of them have, which is brilliant. But the norm for me has been, or the norm that I see for most of my clients who have clients, is they want to tip their toe in the water first. They want to take you out for dinner to see if you're the right person to get them there. So that's my 2 pence on I can't afford you. There are very many different ways to work with this, and there isn't just one right way. But the ultimate leverage point that we have in any situation is connection. And that leads to curiosity. And that leads to unpacking what's really going on for the other person.